And it came to pass, after the judgment of the deep, when the fountains of the great abyss were sealed and the roar of the flood was hushed, that the earth stood still in silence. The skies no longer wept, the winds no longer howled. The ark rested upon the mountains of Ararat, and from its wooden belly emerged the remnant of mankind. Noah, a righteous man, stepped forth with trembling feet upon the sodden ground, his eyes lifted to the heavens in awe and reverence. With him walked his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, the bearers of the seed of the new world. Though the slate had been washed, the stain of man's heart remained. From the line of Ham came Cush, and from Cush came a child whose name would echo across the plains of history: Nimrod. Even in his youth, Nimrod was unlike other children. There was something in his eyes, a fire, a piercing purpose. His voice carried weight beyond his years, and when he spoke, people paused. He had no love for flocks nor patience for fields. His heart stirred not at the bleating of sheep, but at the thrill of the hunt. He became a mighty hunter before the Lord, not in reverence, but in reputation. Swift as the eagle, cunning as the serpent, and relentless as the lion, Nimrod tracked his prey through forests still wild from the flood's retreat. He stalked creatures that had once ruled the wilderness, beasts that men feared. Yet before Nimrod, they fell. His bow never missed. His spear struck like lightning. The growls of lions were stilled at the sound of his steps. But Nimrod was not content with fame in the wild. The glory of a single man in the forest was fleeting to one who dreamed of eternity. He sought a crown, not carved from gold, but built from people. "Why scatter and die alone," he asked, "when we can gather and live in strength?" So he called the wanderers and the wild tribes to his voice. With words like honey and a mind sharp as iron, he spoke of safety behind walls, of peace through power, of greatness through unity. And the people listened. Thus began the first kingdom upon the earth. Nimrod laid its foundation not on stone alone, but upon ambition, rebellion, and pride. He named it Babel in the land of Shinar, and it became a place of wonder and of warning. There, beneath the rising towers, began the first organized defiance against the Most High. Genesis 10:10 declares it plainly. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, Erech, Akkad, and Calneh in the land of Shinar. Here government was born. Here empire took root. Here false religion found its altar, and Nimrod stood at the center, cloaked in power. But still, he was not satisfied. With Babel secured and cities blooming like flowers in the dust, his eyes turned northward, toward the distant highlands of Assyria, and with them came a new hunger, not for prey, but for dominion. He summoned a great army, men like shadows, warriors with eyes that burned with loyalty and fear. Their javelins caught the sun like fire, their horses covered the plains like a thundercloud rolling low. And at their front rode Nimrod, his banner high, his brow proud, his voice the roar of command. Village after village bowed, towns surrendered at the mere whisper of his approach. Bloodless or bloody, it mattered not. Resistance melted before his might. And in the heart of conquest, Nimrod planted another city, Nineveh, a fortress, a crown, a declaration. Nineveh would rise not just as a city of stone, but as a monument to man's might, a citadel proclaiming that Nimrod was not merely a man, but something more. In the temples, the priests began to whisper his name in prayer. In the barracks, the soldiers chanted it before battle. From Babel to Nineveh, Nimrod's kingdom spread like wildfire through the land called Mesopotamia, the cradle between the Tigris and the Euphrates, where once Eden may have bloomed. But now, a different tree had taken root, a tree of pride, power, and spiritual defiance. Nimrod had conquered men, subdued beasts, and raised cities from the soil. But deep in his heart stirred a darker ambition, to build a world united not under God, but apart from him. And that was only the beginning. But Nimrod's heart was not set on unity for righteousness. His vision was not merely to gather people, but to forge a kingdom not built on faith in the Most High, but upon the strength of human hands. It would be a civilization without heaven, where man crowned himself God. To do this, Nimrod knew he would need two pillars, one of power, the other of pride. First, he would build a city, great and imposing, a capital to serve as the seat of law and authority, where his decrees would be carved into the hearts of men. In the fertile land of Shinar, he began to raise Babel, a name that would echo through eternity. From this city he would rule, his voice carried like thunder across the plains. But Nimrod knew, walls alone cannot conquer the soul. Second, he dreamed of a tower, not just a monument of stone, but a symbol of rebellion, a banner for all humanity to rally under, a structure so mighty that it would pierce the heavens themselves. It would be a statement that man had no need of divine help, that glory could be seized by mortar and will. And so the vision of the Tower of Babel was born, a crown for the city, a challenge to the skies. The people gathered as one. Their language was one, their purpose one, and their hearts were stirred with pride. But the land was not ready. In the plain of Shinar there were no stones, no solid rock to lift such a monument. The earth was soft, the mountains were far. The builders despaired, some doubted, others questioned. But Nimrod, the hunter-turned-king, the voice of the multitude, spoke again. Let us not wait for stone to come to us. Let us make our own. Let us forge bricks from the clay and bake them with fire. Let pitch be our bond, and with it let us build a tower that reaches to heaven. And the people obeyed. Furnaces were built, ovens roared with flame. Men toiled like oxen, shoveling clay, pressing it into molds, feeding it into the heat. From the womb of fire came bricks, red, hot, unyielding. Every brick, a silent defiance of heaven. Yet bricks alone could not bind. They needed bitumen, black and sticky, drawn from the depths of the earth. So men marched to the bubbling pits of tar, filled their vessels, and returned to Babel, their bodies blackened with earth's own blood. They poured it between the bricks, layer by layer, binding pride to pride, ambition to rebellion. The tower began to rise. Smoke darkened the sky. Tar scorched the nostrils, yet no one stopped. They worked with wild eyes, driven not by wages but by worship. The work became their god. And at the center stood Nimrod, arms crossed, brow lifted, a lion among men. He needed no altar. He was the altar. And the city bowed to his will. Men climbed ever higher, so high that the clouds passed beneath them. Some fell, crushed, forgotten. The tower claimed them in silence. Their blood seeped into the mud, but no one mourned. They were sacrifices to a kingdom of clay. Still they built. The sun scorched from above. The furnaces burned from below. The heat was unholy, yet none faltered. Women and children filled the streets, carrying water in clay jars, wiping sweat from foreheads, pouring relief into cracked mouths. When hunger stirred, the smoke of feasting filled the air. Roasted lamb, seasoned goat, and ox meat sizzled on stone slabs, their reward for serving the dream. But when the sun set behind the horizon and the shadow of the tower stretched across the plain like a serpent, Babel changed its face. Music, flutes and drums rise, haunting and seductive. Drums echoed into the dark. Flutes wept like spirits in the wind. Fires were lit. Wine poured like rivers. And laughter, wild, drunken laughter, spilled into the night. They sang songs not to Yahweh, but to Marduk, a new god, crafted in the image of their ambition. Their tower was no longer merely a monument. It had become an offering, a shrine to pride, a stairway to the throne of man. Cups were lifted, voices chanted. The people reveled beneath the tower they believed would make them immortal. They called upon Marduk, they hailed Nimrod, and in their hearts, they believed they had risen above the reach of judgment. But the heavens were not silent. Above the smoke and the stone, above the chants and the drums, God watched. And the Most High, who sees all and forgets nothing, beheld the tower that dared to rise where it should not. For while man built with fire and tar, they forgot the fire that judges and the word that speaks confusion. And the Lord said, Behold, the people are one, and they have all one language, and this they begin to do. Now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. "Come, let us go down and there confound their language." And so began the unraveling, and the people gave themselves over to desire beneath the shadow of the Colossus. Lust burned beneath torchlight. Wine flowed like rivers. Music rose and fell like waves, flutes and drums echoing under the open sky. Yet when the sun returned, when the first light broke across the plain, the tower still demanded labor. The revelry died with the dawn. The embers still smoldered. The city stirred with a groan. Men, weary and half-drunk, rose from the dust. They returned to their scaffolds with swollen eyes and cracked hands. No mercy was offered, no rest was given. The tower must rise. Beneath the blazing heat of the sun and the breath of the furnaces, they toiled like beasts. Nimrod's dream had become their burden, their madness. Their eyes no longer saw the sky. They saw only clay, tar, and ambition. And still, the tower rose, taller than trees, taller than hills, taller than fear. Villages far and wide could see its frame looming like a god of stone. From distant mountains, its top pierced the horizon like a dagger drawn against the heavens. They said, "This tower shall touch heaven. The gods shall see it and marvel, and the name of Babel shall never die." And the more it rose, the more their reverence for God sank. They no longer prayed. They no longer remembered the one who had spared their fathers in the ark. Their glory was Babel. Their God was self. At the heart of it all stood Nimrod, lifted high on a platform, his garments dark with dust, his eyes bright with madness. He watched each brick laid as if it were a treasure placed upon a throne. He believed himself the ruler of heaven and earth. Beneath his gaze, thousands labored, willing slaves not to chains but to pride. But the heavens were not deaf. The sky was not empty. The Most High, the creator of breath and stars, the one who measures nations in his palm, looked upon Babel with sorrow and judgment. He saw not a tower of stone, but a monument to man's rebellion. For this was no longer mere construction. It was a declaration. A unified race speaking one language, building one kingdom, not for worship, but for war against heaven. And the Lord said, "Behold, the people are one, and they all have one language. And this they begin to do, and now nothing will be withheld from them which they imagine to do." He did not fear their power. He grieved their path. For even after the flood had washed the earth, man's heart remained unclean. And now, with one voice, they marched not toward holiness, but toward destruction. It was love, not wrath, that moved the Almighty, for if they continued, their arrogance would seal their ruin. If left unchecked, they would tear heaven from the skies in their madness. The judgment would not be water this time, but confusion. Then God spoke to his host, "Come, let us go down and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech." Music shifts, soft winds, dissonant tones, as if reality itself begins to fracture. And so, with a whisper from the throne, the speech of man shattered. The first crack came like a ripple in still water, barely noticed. A mason called to his servant, "Bring the mixture up." But the servant turned and answered, "Nakare, volantage." The mason paused. "What?" The servant repeated, louder this time, but now with words the mason had never heard. Strange syllables, alien sounds, eyes narrowed, tempers stirred. Nearby a craftsman shouted, "Pass me the chisel." The man beside him frowned. "To Soracum." "Speak clearly," snapped the first. But the second only shouted louder, his face twisting in frustration. And shouting became pushing. Pushing became blows. Confusion rippled like thunder through the ranks. A young boy climbed the scaffolding with a pitcher of water. "Father," he cried, holding it out. "Here, I brought you drink." But his father turned to him and replied, "Sama Viltor." The boy's eyes filled with tears. "What?" The father tried again, his voice desperate. But the words were strange, foreign to his own son's ears. And in that moment, something broke. Not just language, but understanding, connection. Hearts were divided. The boy wept, and the father wept too. In the markets, women shouted over spices and bread. "You're robbing me," cried one. "I didn't ask for that," said another. But no one understood. Tongues twisted, tempers flared, bargains became curses, friends became strangers. The invisible bridge of speech had been broken, and chaos fell upon Babel like a sudden storm. The stalls lay overturned, fruit scattered and trampled beneath frantic feet. Women screamed, children cried. A basket flew through the air and struck a passerby. Voices clashed like thunder, but no one understood the other. Language, once the thread that bound them, had been cut. Inside a small house, a woman stirred the stew pot. Her husband entered, sweat on his brow, eyes wide with panic. "Where is our son?" he asked, but she answered in sounds foreign to his ears. He paused, he frowned. He believed she was mocking him. "Why are you playing games?" he barked. "I'm not," she cried, but her words too were strange. Their love still burned, but understanding had been buried, and with it, peace. In the street, a musician raised his flute, desperate to silence the chaos with song. His fingers danced over the reed just as they had every morning. But when he began to sing, no voices joined him. Each tongue hummed its own lament, foreign, clashing, dissonant. He lowered the flute. The music had died. At the high temple, the priests rushed in, cloaked in panic. They lit incense. They raised their hands. They chanted to Marduk in their sacred language. But the man beside them answered in another. Confusion spread like fire on dry grass. One priest thought himself cursed, the other misunderstood. They argued, then shoved, then tore each other's robes. The altar shook, not from divine presence, but from the trembling of mortal rage. And the idol stood motionless, cold, silent, deaf. Elsewhere, mothers ran through the crumbling streets, calling for children whose names no longer had meaning. A woman stumbled. She fell to her knees in the dust, holding a single child's sandal, mud-streaked, silent. Her voice cracked. Her tears fell on a city that no longer knew her. Even the beasts sensed it. The donkeys brayed, the camels bucked, the dogs howled. The air itself was heavy, thick with fear, the scent of tar, and something no eye could see, the weight of divine judgment. And on high, Nimrod, the mighty, the crowned, the builder of Babel, stood frozen atop his unfinished throne. He saw it all. Tools cast aside, friend turned to foe, tongues like shattered glass, his kingdom fractured into dust, his voice once a roar now swallowed in the confusion. The wind lifted his robe, his golden crown slipped from his brow, his mouth opened. He shouted, "Order, discipline, I am your king." But his words fell like stones into a well. No one looked up, no one bowed. Not because they would not, but because they could not. His voice no longer reached their hearts. So he descended step by step, the same steps he once climbed in pride. Now each one bent his spine lower. He descended not as a king, but as a man stripped of power. On the ground he wandered through the city that bore his name, Babel, now broken. He passed the empty markets, the trampled fruit, the looms torn to threads. Knives rusted not with blood alone, but with the tears of those who once dreamed of heaven. At the temple gates he saw his priests, one bleeding, the other wailing. The incense had turned cold, the flames had died. He kept walking. At last he stood before the towering statue of Marduk, his god of glory. Stone-eyed, lifeless, the idol had promised greatness. Now it offered silence. He lifted his arms. "Answer me," he cried. "Give me back my kingdom, restore my voice, unite them again, don't leave me alone." The walls echoed his pleas, but the statue remained still, its mouth carved open but voiceless, its eyes wide but blind. No blink, no breeze, no answer. And Nimrod collapsed. He struck the ground with clenched fists. He screamed. He cursed. He tore the royal robe from his chest and threw dust on his head. He wept, not just for his empire, but for the man he had become. All night he lay there, beneath the dead eyes of Marduk, trembling, sobbing, broken. And when dawn came, it found him not as a king, but as a beggar of the dust, his hair matted, his robes torn, his spirit shattered. The hunter had been hunted, not by beasts, but by God. Days passed. Nimrod wandered the streets of Babel. He spoke, but none understood. Some looked upon him with pity, others turned away. None bowed, none remembered. He who had once been the mighty hunter before the Lord, now fled from the memory of his own pride. He was a king no more. Then came stillness, not peace, but the echo after the storm. The shouting ceased, the blows subsided, the flames went out. The city of Babel stood in ruins, its people scattered, its purpose lost. And yet, in that silence, something strange began to happen. A man sat beside the cold shell of a broken oven, his eyes dull, his voice barely a whisper. "Bread," he muttered. "I want bread." His neighbor turned, puzzled, hearing only strange syllables, but the words kept coming, in a different tongue. Then another voice, another language, and soon across the city, a murmur began to rise, confused, uncertain, but human. The scattering had begun, and a few steps away a man, a stranger, lifted his head. His eyes widened. His ears caught something familiar, something precious. "Did you say bread?" he asked, his words carrying the same rhythm, the same sound. The first man turned, their eyes met, and they understood. A spark ignited. In the midst of the ashes, among the shattered dreams of Babel, two men spoke the same tongue, and that moment, so small, so sacred, was like a flame in the dark. Then others began to gather, some by chance, others by desperate need. A mother called out, and her daughter answered with understanding. An old man greeted another, and the words mirrored back like a song remembered. And so they found each other, by language, by sound, by soul. They drew close. They held hands. They gathered what little they had, pots, tools, scrolls, animals, and one by one, they turned their backs on Babel, not by rebellion, not by planning, but by divine impulse. Some went north, their feet tracing the path of wind and snow. Others descended into green valleys. Some followed rivers that wrapped the land like veins of life. Others crossed mountains, climbed into forests, or sailed across vast waters toward lands not yet named. And thus, the scattering began. They moved not as enemies, but as pilgrims, each bound to a new destiny. Those whose language rolled like thunder and wind made their home in the southern deserts. There, beneath a sun that kissed the sand, they built homes of mud and hides. They tamed the wild. They told stories under the stars. They became the first people of the desert, the ancestors of the Arab nations. Others, who spoke with gentle, rhythmic tongues, followed the winding rivers eastward. They settled among the fertile lands, planting seeds of both wheat and wisdom. They carved the first symbols, marked clay with trade and prophecy. From them rose the peoples of Mesopotamia and the East, the guardians of knowledge, calendars, and kings. Some took to the sea. On rafts bound by hope, they let the winds carry them beyond what eyes had seen. They reached distant shores, jungles, mountains, islands untouched by time. They birthed civilizations in Africa, the Americas, Oceania, hidden, enduring, beautiful. Still others climbed north into the lands where the snow spoke louder than voices, where trees stood like giants, and the sky hung heavy. There they carved wood, wore furs, and endured. From their strength came the peoples of Europe and the steppes, and every group carried their songs, their customs, their stories. But deep within, all carried a memory of a place called Babel, of a tower once raised in pride, of a judgment that scattered them like seed on the wind. Over time, Babel became a legend, a tale of a lost city where man tried to reach heaven and where heaven reached down instead. And so the nations were born, not by war, not by politics, not by empire, but by judgment and mercy. What seemed like a curse was in truth a seed, God's perfect plan to fill the earth. For though he confused their tongues, he never abandoned his purpose. He scattered them to give them story, to teach them that pride breaks, but mercy restores, to show that unity without God is not strength but danger, and that from ashes he still writes redemption. The echo of Babel still lives, in every accent, every language, every lullaby, in every culture and every nation. And though our tongues differ, our origin is one, because where pride broke man, God's mercy scattered him to begin again. Thank you for watching. If you found beauty in this story, subscribe for more forgotten Bible stories brought back to life. Until the next one, peace be upon you. It began with silence, not the kind that brings peace, but the kind that feels like the pause before a storm. Then the heavens cracked open. The sky, limitless, eternal, still, suddenly became a canvas of war. Galaxies recoiled, stars dimmed, and something beyond comprehension began to form in the heights above creation. A sign, a great sign, not from earth, not of man, not of nature, but of God. There, rising in the firmament, was a woman, but not like any woman known to earth. She was clothed with the sun, wrapped in its blazing glory as if fire had chosen her as its garment. The very moon rested under her feet, subdued, obedient, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars, each one pulsing with the destiny of nations. She wasn't walking, she wasn't speaking, she was groaning. Her face, half agony, half glory, told the story of two worlds colliding. She was pregnant, not with fear, not with doubt, but with promise. She cried out, trembling with contractions that echoed like thunder across galaxies. She was in the pains of birth, and her cries shook the stars. But no one came to help. No angel approached. No midwife stepped in. The heavens only watched. Until... The second sign appeared. Without warning, light fled, hope froze, and into the glory of the skies slithered a terror older than time. A great red dragon emerged from the darkness, fiery, serpentine, massive enough to eclipse entire constellations. He slithered with royal arrogance and ancient rage. His eyes burned like molten lava. His scales shimmered with centuries of stolen thrones and crushed rebellions. He had 7 heads, each crowned with diadems of counterfeit rule. 10 horns rose from his frames, symbols of dominion and dread. And his tail, his tail. It swept through the stars like a hurricane of wrath, dragging down a third of the stars of heaven, flinging them toward the earth like they were worthless dust. And the stars wept. But the dragon didn't pause to admire the damage. He had one goal, one obsession: the woman, and more importantly, her child. The dragon coiled before her, his breath releasing clouds of sulfur and shadows. His eyes locked on her womb, not her crown. He knew what she carried, and he feared it. He did not strike yet. He waited. His claws dug into the void. His fangs dripped anticipation. He would devour the child the very moment it was born. This was not just birth, this was war, and all creation held its breath. Heaven is holding its breath. The woman is trembling. The dragon is still, coiled like a predator on the edge of instinct. And then it begins. Her voice pierces the silence. A scream, not of fear, but of labor. Holy pain, soaked in destiny. The kind of pain that means something eternal is breaking into the temporary. Her entire being writhes under the pressure of what's coming. The child, he is coming. And the dragon knows it. His eyes widen, his muscles tense, his mouth opens wider than worlds. The woman groans again, louder, deeper, until the very heavens seem to echo with her cries. A cosmic storm brews around her. Light flares from her belly, the labor building like a tidal wave about to crash. Then, with one final cry, a male child is born. But this is no ordinary child. He shines, not with the glow of newborn skin, but with the brilliance of authority. The stars seem to bow around him. He is born with a rod of iron, the symbol of rule and judgment. This child is not just someone's son. He is the King of Kings in infancy, destined to rule the nations and shatter darkness like pottery before steel. The dragon lunges. His mouth opens, his wings unfurl, and with a roar of ancient hatred he strikes toward the newborn. But in a flash, heaven intervenes. Before the dragon can reach him, before a single claw or breath of flame touches the child is caught up, snatched, lifted, ascended. He is taken to God, to the throne, to the seat of eternal power. just like that. Gone from the dragon's reach, safe in the arms of the Almighty. The dragon's strike hits only air. He howls, roar turning into rage, rage into madness. He missed. He failed. The child now sits at the right hand of the Father, beyond the reach of hell, sin, or serpent. And the dragon knows. He didn't just lose a moment. He lost the war. Meanwhile, the woman, still breathing heavy, her body weak from labor, does not rest. She flees. Not because she's defeated, but because she's preserved. God himself has prepared a place for her, a secret refuge in the wilderness. Not a garden, not a palace, but a wild place carved by the Creator's own hand, a place hidden from the dragon, beyond the reach of his fury. There she is nourished, not by bread alone, but by promise, not by walls, but by the presence of the one who called her. She will remain there for 1,160 days, not forgotten, but protected, not abandoned, but kept. And the dragon, he seethes. He stares into the heavens that rejected him. He stares into the wilderness that hides her. He grinds his teeth on the chains of defeat. But the story isn't over. Not for her, not for him, not for us. Heaven is not a place of peace right now. It is a battlefield. The dragon may have failed to devour the child, but he does not retreat quietly. No, his fury does not dissolve. It intensifies. And now it seeks vengeance in the very heart of heaven itself. A tremor ripples through the courts of eternity. A soundless thunder rumbles beneath the crystal sea. The dragon ascends again, not in power, but in pride. He believes he can challenge the holy order, that he still belongs where he was cast down before, that his voice can echo again in the sanctuary of God. But God is not the one who responds first. Michael steps forward, the archangel, the captain of the Lord's armies, the warrior who never sleeps. Clad in burning armor, his wings spread wider than continents, his sword like a streak of lightning forged from heaven's breath. Michael does not plead. He does not negotiate. He draws his blade, and beside him, an army, a host of heaven. Countless angels burning like torches of divine fury. They rise with him, weapons drawn, faces set like flint. They will not allow the dragon to defile this place again. And so begins the war in heaven. Not metaphor, not myth, war. Heaven shakes, wings beat like hurricanes, blades crash like mountains splitting open. Every flash of light is a strike, every tremble of the stars is a blow exchanged. Michael meets the dragon head on, one forged in holy fire, the other in ancient rebellion. The dragon snarls, unleashing dark winds of deception and accusation. You are not worthy. You are weak. I will rise again. But Michael does not answer with words. He answers with truth. He answers with steel. He answers with flame. The battle rages. Angelic soldiers driving back demonic legions. Thunder meets thunder. Trumpets sound. The heavens themselves become a scroll unraveling, revealing the face of war. Then, a cry, a strike, a collapse, and the dragon falls, not to a prison, not to chains, but to the earth. And the great dragon was thrown down, that ancient serpent who is called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. He was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. Revelation 12:9. Lightning splits the skies as he crashes through. His angels, twisted and fallen, spiral behind him like burning stars. Their voices are lost in the howling wind of divine judgment. The saints below raise their heads. Their accuser is silenced. No more whispers in the courtroom of heaven. No more condemnation in the ears of the righteous. No more accusations before the throne. The saints overcame, but not by sword, not by strength, not by status. They overcame by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. And the skies have closed, the heavens are clean, but the earth is not ready. A streak of red fire rips through the atmosphere, like a meteor cursed by God himself. Thunder cracks, trees tremble, seas rise, and the dragon crashes down. He lands not gently, but violently, like judgment itself. The ground fractures beneath him, smoke and shadow explode into the sky. Forests wither, animals flee, creation groans under the sudden weight of evil personified. Satan has arrived, cast down, stripped of heaven, but still venomous, still powerful, still enraged. And he is not alone. Falling behind him are the angels he deceived, his army of darkness, twisted shadows of once glorious beings. Their wings are scorched, their faces hollow. They scream, not in fear but in rage, because they've been cut off from light forever. The dragon does not mourn his fall. He doesn't repent, he plots, he paces, he hungers, and he remembers the one who escaped him, the woman, the radiant one who gave birth to the child he couldn't destroy. And so the dragon turns, not to the throne. He's banned from that now, not to the child. He's unreachable now. He turns his fury to the woman. She's no longer standing in the skies. She's no longer glowing with sunfire or crowned with stars. She's in the wilderness, a dry, jagged, lonely place, hidden, vulnerable, yet preserved, because God had already prepared a place for her there, long before the dragon ever fell, long before the chase began. God made a way. They did not love their lives even unto death. The battlefield of heaven is cleared. The throne of God remains untouched. The Lamb still reigns. But the earth is now haunted by a dragon, and he is not just angry, he is enraged, because he knows his time is short. The dragon charges across the desert winds. His wings cast shadows over mountaintops. His roar echoes through valleys. He brings storms of fear and rivers of accusation, but heaven is not silent. Before he can reach her, 2 great wings are given to the woman, not the wings of an earthly bird, not the wings of a mythical beast. These are the wings of deliverance. She rises. Swept up by the wind of the Spirit, she soars into the air like a flame borne by breath. The wilderness is no longer a trap. It becomes her sanctuary. She lands where God intended, a place prepared, a season protected, a purpose preserved. For time and times and half a time, Revelation 12:14, she remains untouched by the dragon's reach. But Satan is not done. He opens his mouth. From his jaws spews forth a river, a flood made not of water, but of chaos, a torrent of lies, a flood of confusion, deceptions dressed as logic, fear wrapped in flattery, seduction hidden in culture. He sends it straight toward the woman, hoping to sweep her away, to drown her in despair, to wash her out of her calling. It looks unstoppable. But then, something miraculous happens. The earth, the very ground she stands upon, opens its mouth. The land itself swallows the flood. Nature rises to her defense. Creation honors its creator. The flood vanishes into the soil. The woman stands. She is tired. She is wounded. But she is not defeated. And the dragon? He loses again. He roars into the silence, flapping his wings in fury. His schemes drowned, his flood absorbed, his prey once again out of reach. But this loss cuts deeper, because now, he, the dragon's wings, no longer beat the air. He does not roar. He whispers, because this battle is now closer. He has failed to stop the child, failed to devour him, failed to destroy the woman, failed to break the plan of God. But the dragon is not done. He turns slowly, like a serpent adjusting its coils, eyes narrowing with cold precision. His rage doesn't roar anymore, it simmers. It calcifies into obsession, and then into strategy. Then the dragon was enraged at the woman and went off to make war against the rest of her offspring, those who keep God's commands and hold fast their testimony about Jesus. Revelation 12:17. The offspring of the woman, not just one, not just some, all who call on the name of Jesus, all who dare to believe in the Lamb, all who stand for truth when lies feel louder, all who carry light into places where darkness thought it had won. You, me, us. The dragon begins a new war, one fought in boardrooms and bedrooms, in classrooms and countries, in laws and temptations, in identity and distraction. This war does not always look like swords and fire. It looks like compromise, like addiction, like isolation, like pride, like subtle lies whispered in first person. I'm not worthy. God has forgotten me. This is too much. He makes war on those who obey God's commandments. He makes war on those who testify about Jesus Christ. Not just the famous, not just the pastors, not just the prophets. Anyone who belongs to the Lamb becomes the dragon's new target. He studies your weaknesses. He mocks your victories. He amplifies your shame. He corrupts what is holy and familiar, turning church into entertainment, worship into performance, prayer into habit, and the gospel into noise. And all the while, he smiles. Because if he can't reach heaven, he'll try to shut down heaven's people. He doesn't need to devour you with fangs if he can make you forget who you are. But there's something he forgets. You're not just a target, you're a testimony. Heaven watches, not with fear, but with fire, because the saints are rising. Not perfect, but purchased. Not fearless, but faithful. Not strong, but surrendered. They still overcome. By the blood of the Lamb that covers what Satan condemns. By the word of their testimony that silences the dragon's accusations. And by loving not their lives even unto death, because they know this isn't the end. This is war, but it's already won. The war is no longer distant. It walks among us. It shows up in persecuted nations where Bibles are burned. It shows up in distracted hearts where devotion is buried. It shows up in culture, in media, in philosophies that sound true but feel hollow. The dragon has changed his weapons, not always teeth, sometimes screens, sometimes shame, sometimes a voice in your head that says, "You'll never make it." But you're still standing. You haven't bowed. You haven't walked away. And even if you're crawling, you're still moving forward, because what was born in heaven cannot be killed on earth. You are part of a story that started before time, and you are still in it. So when the night feels darker, when your prayers feel weaker, when your dreams feel delayed, when the flood seems to rise again, remember, the dragon may have turned to you, but the Lamb is still on the throne. The child still reigns. The woman is still protected, and the war has already been won. He didn't choose you because you were strong. He chose you because you would stand. So stand. This story, the woman, the dragon, the child, is not a myth. It's the pattern of history. It's the heartbeat of redemption. It's the map of your life. The woman represents the people of God, spiritual Israel, the church, those who carry promise. The dragon is the devil, the accuser, the deceiver, the one who lost but keeps fighting. The child is Christ, the promised one, the risen one, the reigning one. And the battle? It still rages. But here's the promise. The dragon is limited. The wilderness is protected. The child is enthroned. The saints will overcome. So what now? You may feel stuck in the wilderness. You may feel the flood rising, fear, depression, delay, temptation, confusion. You may feel accused by your past, your shame, your failures. You may feel alone, forgotten, unqualified, worn out. But friend, if you're still breathing, you're still in the fight. And you're not fighting for victory, you're fighting from it. You are the generation John saw. You are the voice the dragon still fears. You are the testimony the darkness can't drown, because you carry Christ. And one day, just as the child was snatched up to the throne, so will you be. Scripture references for readers to go deeper. Revelation 12:1-17, Revelation 12:5. She gave birth to a male child, one who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. Revelation 12:7. Now war arose in heaven. Revelation 12:10-11. And they have conquered him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. Revelation 12:17. Then the dragon became furious with the woman and went off to make war on the rest of her offspring. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do, so you never miss another powerful and beautifully explained scripture.